Assalamu alaikum. As he said, my name is Amir Sulaiman, and I'm a visitor here. And so I would like to thank you for having me. And I do poetry, if you haven't heard. And this is what I do for a living. What will make this very special for me is if this was more of a conversation than a presentation. So I would like it not just to be an occasion where I'm just talking to you the whole time and then you're quiet and you wait for me to be finished. I would like for you to engage. So if you have questions or if you have comments or anything, I want you to feel free to express them. Inshallah, just no cursing or throwing things, but other than that, inshallah, we'll make space for it. Is that okay with you? Okay, this is something that I desire from you, and I want to give you some poetry, inshallah, and so we'll trade. Now, I tell you what usually happens is, I come, I give this little thing I just said, right? And then people say, oh yes, we'll do that, that's great, that's nice. And then, you know, people for one reason or another won't ask questions sometimes, and then afterwards there's a long line of questions, like after the event. And I would think, like, subhanAllah, maybe some other people would have benefited from those questions if you would have asked them out loud in front of everyone. So, I'm gonna ask again. Everybody's good with the whole open forum thing, and we're gonna talk with each other. If you don't have a question, you don't have a question. I can't make you have a question. You know what I'm saying? If you have a question, I want you to feel free. I want you to feel obligated to do so, right? So everyone feel comfortable with that? Yeah. Okay. Okay, you said yes, and your word is your bond, and it's bad to lie. They say that the Lord will come like a thief in the night. Perhaps the Lord will come in the things that are right, in the things that we bleed, in the things that we read, in the things we recite. Maybe they're afraid I'll spit fire in these kerosene streets to ignite, or that I'll spit water in these barren streets to give life. And I've learned that the thing that pulls the fiend to the pipe is the same thing that pulls a human being to the light. The love of love, a means to cope. So I try to inhale their dreams and exhale hope. Homeboy said, man, the people need to fill a dome. So you can inhale their dreams and exhale hope, but you better chew coca leaves and spit out dope. And that reminded me of a passage, and I quote, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change the condition as what's within themselves, end quote. Inshallah, I won't falter. Steady rocket Gibraltar, swift traversing waters, verses I've authored, I offer as a solemn sacrifice upon the altar in order to alter the current conditions of our sons and our fathers. And they say we need more black mayors and black lawyers. I say we need more black mayors to win Grammys for singing songs about our daughters, because we are caught in a culture of defeatism, worshiping victims and martyrs. We are not victims but victors. Are we but witness our honor, our brilliance, our resilience, and our beauty is farther than pimping hoes, tricking dough, Gucci and Prada. From South Street to Simpson Road, we are shook in the trauma of terrorism that precedes Al-Qaeda and Osama. Forget Bin Laden, Ben Franklin enslaved my great-great-grandmama, comma, great-great-grandfather, comma, indigenous nations of reservations, comma, who are caught in a coma, sleep. So the truth will have to come like a thief in the night. But if you're awake, you'll hear it in the things that we write, in the things that we bleed, in the things we recite. And because the truth will come like a thief in the night, being awake, I've learned, is the meaning of life. So this poem, that poem there is is actually the title poem of the album that I'm finishing up now. And I don't know if this is, I knew it, but this is maybe from my family's tradition in Christianity, but do you guys know this term, like a thief in the night, where this comes from? Right, the Bible. And it is a reference to Jesus coming back, and his coming back is described that he'll come back like a thief in the night, which in some ways can be an ironic image because he's not usually described as a thief or like a criminal, right? But this terminology of it being at nighttime, I don't know if it necessarily means like it's going to be after Maghrib, but that means that it is a time when people are sleeping, when things are obscure. Like when the Lord says in the Quran, He talks about how He made the day and why He made the day and how He made the night and why He made the night. So the night is a time when things are obscure, and it is a time when the people are sleeping. So this great event will happen while many people are asleep. And many people will miss this event, not just this event in particular, but great spiritual occasions that are happening right now as we speak, as we hear right now. We miss these things because we are asleep. And so the objective, inshallah, is to remain awake, to remain looking for the thief in the night, looking for the miracles, looking for the return. So this is what this poem is about. But I've done some talking, so I would like to ask if there's any questions, comments, or concerns. If there's not, it's okay. But it's bad to lie. So you can raise your hand or you can just speak up. If not, I'll go on. How did I become a poet? It's a good question. I became a poet when I was very young. I began writing, and I thought it was something that everyone did. I didn't realize it was something like special that I was doing, so I thought that everyone, you know, like you go to school, you eat, you sleep, maybe you play some sports, you play video games, you write some poetry in your off time. I thought this is what everyone did. But after I became older, I realized that this wasn't the case. And that's when I realized that, you know, that Allah had given me something special, and I started to take it more seriously and really try to become excellent at it.
So what's the poem that you got in trouble when you shared it on the TV?
Yeah, this poem is a poem, Danger. Maybe I'll do this poem right now.
Sure.
I'll do it right now. This poem, I'll tell you where this poem came from first, and then I'll do the poem, and I'll tell you about the response to it, inshallah. This poem was not shortly after 9/11, but it was a time when America, where I'm from, was getting ready to go to war with Iraq. And so there was a lot of, you know, tension in the Muslim world and even in the United States. And but the thing that I was finding since 9/11, that people that I considered leaders in the Muslim community, they were constantly, when in front of a camera or in front of a microphone, constantly like apologizing and backpedaling and playing this very defensive role, as if they had committed some crime. And so they're constantly apologizing for themselves, or apologizing for the Muslim people, or apologizing for ayats of Quran, and things like this, and making up things, saying things like, you know, jihad is never expressed in the military means. It means this inner struggle, and it's never talking about actually fighting anyone, which is just a lie. So it was very disappointing to me. So this issue of jihad became very crucial. So on one side I found the people saying that jihad was just about fighting. It was only about fighting and political power and dominating your enemies and economic strength. And then there were these people that were saying that jihad is just about praying and fasting and fighting your desires and waking up for Fajr and things like this. So I found both of these people deficient in their explanation. I found them leaving off part of this religion of ours, of Islam, and taking an extreme position. And I was not saying it was one or the other, but it was both. Because if there was a person who was fighting outwardly and fighting his enemy, but he has not purified himself, say if he is fighting the greedy and he defeats the greedy, but he has not defeated the greed within himself, then when he is in power, he'll simply reinstate whatever he was fighting against. And we see this over and over and over again throughout history and even in our modern world. Similarly, so this person's jihad is just a vanity, it is amusement, it is falsehood, it is imaginary, it's nothing, useless. Similarly, this person who is, you know, in his place of worship and is praying and fasting and searching for this spiritual enlightenment, but if this spiritual enlightenment does not cause him to hear the cries of the people dying on his doorstep or the people starving down the street, and does not cause him to change it with his hands, and if he cannot to condemn it with his tongue, and if he cannot to hate it in his heart, and this is the weakest level of faith, then his spiritual enlightenment is vanity, it is nothing, it is falsehood, it is useless. And so what I find in our example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is combining both of these things in a sane, and a rational, and a humanitarian way, even if it was an inward struggle or if it was an outward struggle. So this is what this poem is about. And this poem has 4 reasons for being. Number 1, it is a poem of desperation. Number 2, it is a poem to remind those who would like to be reminded. Number 3, it is a poem to remind those who would like not to be reminded. And number 4, it is to inform those that don't know. I am not angry, I am anger. I am not dangerous, I am danger. I am abominable stress, idiotic, relentless. I'm a breath of vengeance. I'm a death sentence. I'm forsaken repentance to the beast and his henchmen, armed forces and policemen, a survivor of oil in prisons, until the cup runneth over with lost souls that wear oversized caps like blindfolds, shiny necklaces like lassos, dragging them into black holes. I may have to holler at Fidel Castro to get my other brother out of Guantanamo, and the innocents on death row is probably in the same proportion as the criminals in black robes that smack gavels, that smash homes, that smack gavels, that crack domes. Justice is somewhere between reading sad poems and 40 ounces of gasoline crash at the windows. Justice is between plans and action, between writing letters to congressmen and clapping a captain, between raising legal defense funds and putting a gun on a bailiff and taking a judge captive. It is between prayer and fasting, between burning and blasting. Freedom is between the mind and the soul. It is between the lock and the load, between the zeal of the young and the patience of the old. Freedom is between the finger and the trigger. It is between the page and the pen, between the grenade and the pen, between righteous anger and keeping one in the chamber. So what can it do with a man with a heart like Turner, a mind like Douglas, a mouth like Malcolm, and a voice like Chris? That's why I am not dangerous, I am danger. I am not angry, I am anger. I am abominable, stress, idiotic, relentless. I'm a breath of vengeance. I'm a death sentence. I'm forsaken repentance to the beast and its henchmen, politicians and big businessmen. I'm a teenage Palestinian, opening fire at an Israeli checkpoint, point blank, checkmate, now what? I'm an inmate, sharp shaped to the CO, earlobe to earlobe, cut short, case closed, now what? I am Sitting Bull with Colonel Custer's scalp in my hands. I am Sim K with a slave trader's blood on my hands. I am Jonathan Jackson handing a gun to my man. I am David with a slingshot and a rock. And if David lived today, he'd have a Molotov cocktail and a Glock. So I say down with Goliath. I say down with Goliath. But we must learn, know, write, read. We must kick, bite, yell, scream. We must pray, fast, live, dream, fight, kill, and die free. So after this poem is when some of the problems started. They're not really problems. Well, first of all, so I'm invited on this show by Russell Simmons. Maybe some of you know who he is, right? Russell Simmons is big, like the godfather of hip hop music. This is the term that he's used to call. So he has a show called Deaf Poetry where poets come and perform on this show. And so they invite you, like they hear about you, you send in a tape or something like that, they hear about you, they call you to come and perform it, and they tape it and broadcast it. And so I was called on the show, but they don't tell you what poems that you have to read. But the producer of the show liked one of the poems that I wrote called Eve Amongst Beasts, and maybe I'll do that poem later. But it's kind of this poem about this man and this woman, and it's nice. I like the poem, but I'm thinking, I have 2 minutes on national TV. Is this what I want to talk about, right? So I feel like I wouldn't want to talk about something that maybe no one else on the show is going to talk about in order to make sure this message gets out. And so it was already a bit of a gamble, because just because they ask you to come doesn't mean that they'll actually put you on the air. Sometimes there's some people that come and perform and they don't like the poem and they just won't air it. So, you know, I'm weighing the pros and cons, like, you know, if I do this soft poem, they'll air me, and then next time I can do it once I get my foot in the door. You know, you play these games with yourself, right? And so, but I decided just to go ahead and do this poem. Now, there's 3 poets that went before me, I think, the show opens up with a stand-up comic, right? So everybody's in a nice mood, laughy, jokey, and then the first three poets were these kind of, they did these kind of cutesy poems about relationships and stuff like, you know, don't you hate when men do this, and like this type of stuff, right? So everybody's laughy, jokey, having a great time, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, God, I'm gonna be the party pooper here, right? I'm gonna ruin the night for everyone. And so I have this poem, and the first thing I do is danger, and there's no really to warm up into danger. It starts off saying, I'm not angry, I'm angry, I'm not dangerous. So there's no way to like take it easy into the poem. And so then I started kind of wanting to change my mind, like, man, maybe I shouldn't do that poem. So I come out on the stage, and my heart is pumping. I got one of the lavalier mics on like this, and I feel like the people could hear my heart pumping. It was beating so hard. So I come out, like I'm standing here, and all the people are smiling, waiting for me to tell a joke or something, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't have any jokes. And so I figure, well, just go 100% with it, because that way you won't regret it. But if I kind of punk out, then I'll regret it forever. So I say, I'm just gonna go. So I just go and do it. And everyone is very still and very quiet for a long, I mean, the poem's only 2 minutes, but it felt like a long time. Everyone was really still and quiet. And I'm thinking, this is either going very well or this is going very poorly. And I get to a line, I can't remember what the line was. Some line, and then people like make a noise. And I was like, wow, this is going great. And I finish the poem, and the people stand up, and Russell Simmons comes backstage, and thank you, we're so blessed to have you here. So I couldn't believe it. So I was thinking that I was doing something, I thought when I wrote the poem and when I was gonna do the poem, I thought I was doing something really brave. I say, you know, I'm gonna speak the truth in front of a tyrannical ruler. This is the best shit had. I don't care if they don't like it, I'm gonna do it anyway. You know, if they don't air me out there, I'm doing something brave. And literally, they all stand up and start clapping. It reminds me of this cartoon. I don't know if you even have this cartoon. Do you have this cartoon called The Boondocks? You know what I'm talking about? It's a comic strip, but it's also a show on Comedy Central or Cartoon Network or something. So anyway, I'm really diverging here, but I'm gonna get to the FBI thing in a second, right? So this is about this family of black people that live in the suburbs in America, right? So there's a grandfather and there's two little boys. One of the little boys actually was like me when I was growing up. He's like, I don't know, like maybe 9 or something, but he's this real hardcore revolutionary, power to the people, extremist black guy in this white neighborhood, right? So he's always causing problems and stuff. So then the episode starts out, he's having this dream. And he's at this garden party, and I didn't know what a garden party was before, so I'm gonna say what it is just in case you guys don't know. It's like a very rich person has a garden, and they invite people over and they eat cheese and drink and talk and stuff. It's called a garden party. So he's having this dream, and he goes to this garden party, right? And so he gets on the stage, and you know, like, I'd like to have your attention, please. And he says just 3 things. He says, I hope I can remember them correctly. If anyone's seen this episode, you can correct me. He says, Bush planned 9/11, Ronald Reagan is Satan, and Jesus is black, right? Just only these 3 things, nothing else, right? No explanation or nothing. He gets up, he says, you know, excuse me, you know, Bush planned 9/11, he's this little boy, Ronald Reagan is Satan, and Jesus is black. And so what happens is all these rich white people go crazy. They're like, oh my God, so they lose their mind, they start turning over tables, it's like riot happens, they lose their minds, right? They start fighting each other and burning stuff, it's crazy. So he wakes up from his dream, it was just a dream. But anyway, later in the episode, his grandfather's really invited to a garden party. So he goes to this garden party for real, right? And so he does the same thing that happened in the dream. He gets up and says, you know, Bush planned 9/11, Ronald Reagan is Satan, and Jesus is black. And all the white people say, oh, he speaks so well, and they start clapping. And he's like, did you hear what I said? Jesus is black, right? And they all just keep clapping, oh my God, let's hear more. You know, they all kind of put their hands underneath, oh, he's so cute, like that, right? That's like my whole career. So I'm thinking I'm writing this stuff that's gonna be horribly offensive and I'm doing this great thing. But then in terms of everyone loves it, they invite me on TV, invite me all around the world, and Russell Simmons and other people like love my poetry. But the only people who haven't let me down is the FBI. So they don't like it. So 6 days after my poem aired, they came by my mother-in-law's and they came by my apartment. I was in California, they found me in California, and I was living in Atlanta. and they went by my place in Atlanta in the school at which I taught. I was teaching high school, and visited some of the friends that I knew and asked about me and stuff, and they were asking questions like, you know, is Amir's poetry anti-American? Which I thought was a strange question for two reasons. One is, I'm not prejudiced. If they give me $10, I give them a CD like anyone else. So whatever they would like to know about my poetry, if they want so cheap, maybe they just give me the money, I give them the CD, and they have all the evidence they need. But then the second thing is, why it was strange to me, is that, like that poem that I did, and the other poems that they don't like, I never say the word America. I never say this thing, I never say the word George Bush. I talk about devils, oppressors, tyrants, and they show up. Like, why are you talking about us? I said, I didn't say anything about you. I was talking about tyrants. So this thing went on for a little bit, and at first I was keeping it to myself because it was like a little, you know, I was a little concerned. I was like, you know, the feds are following me around and stuff like that. So I consulted some people that had had dealt with this, older people that were in different struggles with Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, Rahimahullah, or Imam Jamil Al-Amin, may Allah free him, and different people, and they were saying, no, you have to talk about it everywhere you go, because this, for the community to be aware of it, is a source of power and strength and defense. It is a means, it is a shield for you. If you keep it to yourself, then you are indeed exposing yourself to whatever they want to do. They can just make you disappear and no one would even ask where you were. So I began talking about it, and the more I talk about it, the less I hear from them, actually, so it's working out well. So I wrote this statement called the High Cost of the Freedom of Speech. And it was an essay that I wrote as a public announcement and gave it to some press and stuff like that. And the reason I wanted to write it, one, was because of the advice that I got, and I wanted the people to know about it. But two, and maybe even more importantly, I didn't want anyone to be afraid for me or for themselves. I didn't want like other poets that I know to say, I'm just gonna write love poetry from now on because look what happened to Amir. Nor did I want people to be to misconstrue my position, because my position is not that I'm an American and I was born in America and I have the right to speech and I'm petitioning for my right to speak, or I'm protesting for my right to speak, or I'm gonna engage with them for my right to speak. Because this is not my position. For surely, without doubt, my right to speech is given to me by Allah Ta'ala, and me speaking is sufficient as proof that I have been given the right to speak. So it is a way for me to debase myself, to humiliate myself, to dishonor myself, to go to these people and ask for my right to speak as if they have the right to give it or revoke it. So they have no power whatsoever. For me to lower myself and have to request something that they cannot offer is a way for me not only to dishonor myself, but dishonor my relationship with Allah or the gift that Allah has already given me. So this issue of right to speech is finished. It is truly, in the language of our documents, it say an inalienable right? It's not just inalienable, it's not something that can't be taken away just by the rule of law. It cannot be taken away by any government. We can only relinquish our right to speech. We can only surrender our right to speech, but they cannot take it away from us. So it was a way for me to let people know about how I felt and to encourage the people not to lower ourselves to these people because they only have the pretense of power. The power that they have is imaginary power. For as we know in our book, it says that the truth has come and the falsehood has vanished, and falsehood by its nature is a vanishing thing. Or the truth has come and knocks the brains out of falsehood, right? So this is our position. So if we are with truth and we are indeed sincere in truth, then whatever they come, rise and falls, wax and wanes, comes and goes, because it's false, and the falsehood by its nature is a vanishing thing. So it was just a reminder for myself and for all of you that our rights are with Allah Ta'ala.
What about their right to insult our prophet?
Oh, this is an important thing. SubhanAllah, I hope I don't talk about it, someone burn something down. So we're gonna take it real easy, okay? All right. Now, the dilemma is, it's a couple dilemmas in the cartoon thing. One dilemma is, in the Muslim world, it is hard to imagine a place where the government doesn't have control over the press. So they petition against the government, and the government is saying it's not us. But it's hard for a Muslim to accept this. It's like if I'm out somewhere and someone's child just decides to like pee on my car or something. And I'm looking at the parent like, would you tell your child to stop peeing on my car? She's like, it is our policy not to tell our children what to do. I'm like, what are you talking about? Stop them peeing on my car. So I'm not even angry at the child per se. The first one I'm looking to is their parent. But they have this thing of freedom of press. Now, however, the other major problem is this double standard. For during the same time and the same, very close to each other, someone else in, I think it was Germany or Austria, gets sentenced to prison for saying that the Holocaust either didn't happen or saying there were no gas chambers. He made some criticism about the Holocaust, and they put him in prison. And there are more than one imams in London who have been arrested, and there's the charge, it's not even a pretend charge that they have a conspiracy of building bombs or some terrorist act, but the actual charge is their speech of they have said things that we deem illegal and we will put you in prison. So then the Muslim world is looking like, well, you put this person in prison, this person in prison, this person in prison for what they have said, but you, all of a sudden, this freedom of speech thing becomes very precious to you over this issue. And this is very personal, this is my personal way of dealing with this thing. Where I grew up, I didn't grow up, I mean, there was an Islamic community, but I grew up in a place, like the school that I went to, there were no Muslims and only a very few black people. So there was a method by which you defend yourself from the racism, from the jokes, from the insults that they would give and still preserve your honor. So some people's sense of humor is to instigate a response because they want to see something. They find pleasure in seeing people lose their temper. And they feel like whatever happens after that, they have won. And so I've learned dealing with these type of people that the best method is not to take the high road in a way that I mean like, oh, it's okay, or laugh along with them or anything like this. But sometimes for us to expose ourselves becomes a way to further, they will use it to further try to humiliate us. They don't, again, just like the right to speech that we have been given, they don't have the right to do this. Again, by Allah, I don't care what the law says, I don't care what these men have written on papers and what these people have created in their little rooms and their meetings, and they talk about what is lawful and what is unlawful. They sit in the room and say this is halal, this is haram, this is halal, this is haram, off of their own desires, off of their little, consultation with people that have no knowledge of the book, the akhirah, the angels, the prophets, or nothing. So I know their papers mean nothing to me concerning issues like this when Allah has already put something clear. So I say unequivocally, no, they don't have the right. Under their constitution, I'm assuming they have the right, but I'm saying under the law of Allah Ta'ala, under the divine law, under the law of God, no one has the right to desecrate any of the prophets. So you will never find the Muslims drawing pictures of Jesus or Moses, may peace and blessings be upon them, and their families, and making jokes of them. They'll make jokes of the Jews. A lot of jokes to the Jews, but they won't make jokes about their prophet. And then they make jokes about the Muslims, but this is of a particular sensitivity. And the thing that the Western world can't understand is that the level of love and honor that we give the prophets, in particular Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they can't understand. They don't have love like this for anyone. They don't even know what this type of love feels like. They can't understand a person that has died many years ago, for you to draw a funny picture about him will cause you to want to kill someone. Now, they can't imagine what would make a person burn down a building because you made fun of someone that's been dead for 1,000 years. It's something that doesn't compute. And so there is these two mind states that are not, that don't know how to express these ideas to each other, and so it results in riots and things like that. And I don't criticize the people that rioted. That's not my position. I would not have, I did not riot. And again, I emphasize, I promise I did not riot. Disregard any video footage or any pictures. No, I didn't riot. But I don't criticize these people for rioting, because sometimes there needs to the people need to show how offensive the thing is. For my people, ethnically, black people in America, we have rioted before. And this is not because it is the most high-minded thing to do, but because sometimes if people feel disenfranchised, they feel like they don't have a voice and there's no other recourse, and they go to the streets in this manner, and then people pay attention, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do that again. But otherwise, they just think it's cute and funny, and nobody really cares. So I do not criticize the people that rioted, nor do I criticize the people that did not riot. And that was a very long